How to always have something to say in any conversation. Have you ever been in a conversation and suddenly you hit that awkward silence? You know, the one where everyone's just kind of staring at their shoes or looking for the nearest exit? We've all been there. You start to think, what can I say next? Or why did I just say that? It's like the words just disappeared from your brain. But here's the thing. What if I told you that having something to say in any conversation isn't about being the loudest person in the room or the one with all the answers? It's actually about being curious and prepared. You can absolutely walk into any social situation and know exactly how to keep the conversation flowing, even if you're not the most talkative person. Sounds pretty great, right? In today's video, we're going to explore how you can always have something to say in any conversation. Whether you're talking to your boss, a stranger at a party, or even your closest friends, I'm going to share some simple but powerful tips that will make you feel more confident and prepared the next time you're in a chat. Let's dive in. So, first things first, the secret to great conversations is not about knowing everything. It's about asking the right questions. Imagine this. You're at a party and you're talking to someone you've just met. The conversation might start off awkward, but then you ask them a question that shows genuine interest in what they're saying. Suddenly, they're telling you stories, laughing, and engaging. Why? Because people love to talk about themselves. Now, this doesn't mean you should turn every conversation into an interview, but asking questions can be the perfect way to open up the dialogue. You don't need to have a million facts up your sleeve. Instead, you just need to be genuinely curious about the other person. Ask about their hobbies, their day, or their thoughts on a current event. People love to share their opinions, and when you show a real interest in theirs, you'll find the conversation keeps flowing. A good trick I always use is the follow-up question. Once someone shares something, don't just nod and move on. Dig a little deeper. For instance, if they mention they're into photography, ask them what kind of photos they enjoy taking, or if they have a favorite location for shooting. People love talking about their passions, and the more questions you ask, the more they'll open up. But asking questions isn't the only thing that makes a conversation great. It's also about being present. That might sound like a no-brainer, but hear me out. It's easy to get distracted during conversations. You know when someone is talking, but you're just waiting for your turn to speak? Or maybe you're thinking about your to-do list while they're sharing something personal? Being mentally present, actually listening to the other person, is a game changer. When you're truly listening, you start picking up on things that can naturally lead to new topics. Maybe they mentioned a book they're reading or a trip they're planning. That's your golden ticket. You now have something to latch onto and explore further. It shows the person you're speaking to that you value what they're saying and are invested in the conversation. That's the kind of energy that keeps discussions interesting. If you're wondering, but what if I don't know much about the topic they're talking about? Don't worry, this is where your curiosity can shine. You don't have to be an expert on every subject. You just need to be open-minded and willing to learn. So let's say they start talking about a topic that's totally unfamiliar. Maybe it's a new technology or a type of food you've never tried. Instead of staying quiet or zoning out, ask them about it. Be that person who's willing to learn something new. You'd be amazed how much people appreciate someone who isn't afraid to ask, "Can you tell me more about that?" Or "How did you get into that?" And here's the beauty of curiosity. It doesn't just help you fill the silence. It also makes you more interesting to talk to. When you show interest in what others are passionate about, you automatically make yourself more engaging. People love sharing their knowledge and experiences, and you become the person they want to talk to. Now that you know how to keep the conversation going by asking good questions and staying engaged, I want you to think about one more thing: how you frame the conversation. Have you ever noticed that some people just have this knack for making everything sound interesting, even when they're talking about something simple? There's a subtle art to making your conversations come alive, and it all boils down to how you approach it. When you speak with enthusiasm and a sense of wonder, it's contagious. Even if you're talking about something mundane, like your day at work or a movie you recently watched, the way you present it can make all the difference. Imagine telling someone about your day with a bored tone, And compare that to sharing the same story with excitement and energy. Which one do you think would keep the conversation interesting? Now that we've talked about asking good questions, being present, and bringing energy to your conversations, let's dig into something that's even more powerful: the art of telling stories. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone shares a personal story and suddenly you feel like you're right there with them? It's almost like you're experiencing it together. Stories have a way of creating connections that are deeper than just sharing facts or opinions. When you tell a story, people listen more intently, and the conversation becomes more meaningful. But here's the trick. You don't need to be a professional storyteller to use this technique. You just need to tap into your own experiences and share them in an engaging way. Think about a time when something interesting or funny happened to you. Maybe it was a travel mishap, a funny interaction with a stranger, or even a small life lesson you learned the hard way. Those moments are gold for any conversation. Let me give you an example. I was talking to a friend not long ago, and we were chatting about our favorite types of music. I mentioned that I used to be really into jazz and then shared a story about a time I went to a jazz bar in New Orleans. It wasn't just about the music, it was about the experience, the people I met there, and how it made me feel. As soon as I told that story, the conversation shifted. My friend was now asking about New Orleans, how I felt about jazz, and what else I'd experienced while traveling. It was like opening a door to a deeper conversation. The key here is that stories bring your conversation to life. But here's the catch. It's not about telling every detail. You don't need to drag the conversation out with every single thing that happened. The goal is to highlight the most interesting parts, the emotions, the surprises, or the lessons. Keep it concise and to the point, but don't be afraid to let your personality shine through in the way you share it. And remember, stories don't have to be big or dramatic to be interesting. You'd be surprised how much people enjoy hearing about your everyday life. Things like how you discovered a new coffee spot in town, or how you solved a small problem at work. We all relate to the ups and downs of life, and sharing these little stories helps others feel like they're part of your world. Now, while stories are a great way to keep things flowing, they can also help you connect on a deeper level. That's because stories can lead to shared experiences. Let's say you're talking to someone and they tell you about their love for hiking. Instead of just nodding, you might share a quick story about your own hiking experience, even if it was years ago. It doesn't have to be a perfect match, but finding that common ground creates a bond, and suddenly the conversation is no longer about small talk. It's about two people connecting. But sometimes you're in a conversation where it feels like there's no immediate connection. The other person isn't opening up, or maybe they don't seem interested in sharing much. This is when you need to bring in some empathy and creativity. If the conversation seems stuck, you can steer it by being open to unexpected topics. For example, I've been in situations where I was talking to someone who seemed a bit shy or uninterested. Instead of giving up or letting the silence drag on, I might ask something more unusual. Instead of asking, "What do you do for a living?" I might ask, "If you could work anywhere in the world, where would it be?" It's a question that invites imagination and shows you're not just going through the motions. People love being asked about their dreams, and it gives you a chance to keep the conversation going without feeling like you're prying. Now, before you think I'm saying you should just throw random questions at people, let me clarify. The key is to be sensitive to the other person's mood and body language. If they seem excited about something, dig deeper into that. If they seem more reserved, maybe tone things down a bit. Conversations are a two-way street, and it's all about reading the room. Speaking of reading the room, have you ever noticed how some people just seem to know the right thing to say at the right moment? They've got this intuitive sense about when to speak and when to listen. That's something you can develop over time. The more you practice, the better you get at tuning into those subtle cues, and the more naturally the conversation will flow. One last thing to remember about storytelling and conversation is that it's all about balance. You want to share, but you also want to give the other person space to talk. It's a dance, not a monologue. If you're constantly telling stories, you might inadvertently take over the conversation, which can make the other person feel left out. But if you're too focused on listening without sharing your own experiences, the conversation can become one-sided. So what's the magic balance? It's about being aware of the flow. When the other person is sharing something, give them your full attention. When you share your own stories, keep it relevant and engaging. And always encourage the other person to share more. That's how you keep things interesting. Now that we've covered the power of asking great questions and telling engaging stories, let's talk about humor, the ultimate conversation booster. If you've ever found yourself in a conversation that felt a bit stiff or awkward, you probably know how a well-timed joke or lighthearted comment can break the ice and make everyone feel at ease. Humor isn't just about being funny. It's about creating an atmosphere where people feel comfortable and connected. But here's the thing. You don't have to be a stand-up comedian to use humor effectively. It's more about timing, self-awareness, and being comfortable enough to laugh at yourself. Humor has this magical ability to lighten the mood, build rapport, and even make challenging topics feel less heavy. If you think about your favorite conversations, I bet there was a moment where everyone was laughing and you all felt like you were on the same wavelength. The best part about humor is that it's universal. Sure, we all have different senses of humor, but everyone enjoys a little chuckle or a funny observation from time to time. The key is to keep things lighthearted and inclusive, meaning you want everyone to feel comfortable joining in on the laugh, not left out. A little playful teasing between friends is fine, but steer clear of humor that could make someone feel uncomfortable or alienated. Take my friend Sarah, for instance. She has this amazing ability to make people laugh, not by cracking jokes, but by observing something funny in the everyday moments we all experience. I remember once we were stuck in traffic and everyone was groaning about being late. Sarah just casually said, "At least we're all in this together. Plus, if we're gonna be late, might as well be fashionably late, right?" She didn't need a punchline, but her ability to find humor in a frustrating situation instantly lifted the mood. Everyone in the car started laughing, and suddenly we weren't annoyed anymore. That's the kind of humor I'm talking about. It's about using your observations, your experiences, and even your mistakes to create a bond with the people around you. Sometimes the funniest moments are the ones that happen spontaneously, like when something goes wrong and everyone just has to laugh at the absurdity of it all. Now, if you're someone who struggles with humor or you feel like you're not naturally funny, don't worry. Humor is a skill you can develop, just like any other. It's all about paying attention to what's happening around you and finding the light side of things. Don't be afraid to take risks. Sometimes a little self-deprecating humor can go a long way. For example, I once told a group of friends about a cooking disaster I had where I set off the smoke detector. Instead of feeling embarrassed, I turned it into a funny story about my high-level culinary skills. People laughed and it opened up the conversation to more stories about cooking fails and kitchen disasters. It became a moment of shared connection. That brings us to the next piece of the puzzle, being relatable. One of the best ways to keep a conversation going is by tapping into shared experiences, and humor is a great tool for this. Whether it's talking about a funny TV show everyone watches, a universal struggle like trying to find parking, or a funny pet story. Finding common ground through humor is one of the quickest ways to keep a conversation alive and engaging. But humor doesn't just make things lighter. It also shows that you don't take yourself too seriously. And this is so important in conversation. People are drawn to others who are comfortable in their own skin, who don't feel the need to be perfect or put on a facade. So don't be afraid to laugh at your own mistakes, whether it's spilling your coffee or getting a fact wrong. It humanizes you and allows others to do the same. And trust me, it makes the conversation feel a lot more genuine. Now, we've covered asking great questions, telling captivating stories, and using humor to create connections. But what happens when the conversation gets tough? Maybe you're talking to someone who's a little reserved, or you've hit a lull in the discussion. Here's the secret. Always be ready to shift the direction of the conversation. Sometimes conversations run out of steam, and that's okay. Instead of sitting there awkwardly, be proactive. Think about what topics might reignite the flow. For example, you could introduce a new topic that's easy to talk about, like recent news, an upcoming event, or something relevant to the group. Or if you're not sure what the other person is into, you could say something like, "I've been really into football lately. Do you have any hobbies that you're passionate about?" This gives the other person a chance to share, and you'll find new ground to explore. Here's another tip. Be curious. People love to talk about themselves, and if you express genuine curiosity about their opinions, experiences, and knowledge, it will not only keep the conversation going, but it will also make them feel heard and valued. The more you ask, the more likely they are to open up, which can keep the conversation moving forward in an organic, engaging way. So, to recap, you've got the tools to keep any conversation going: asking the right questions, telling relatable stories, using humor to connect, and knowing when to shift the conversation. It's all about practice, being authentic, and being present in the moment. Conversations are about connection, not about impressing others. When you make others feel comfortable and valued, you'll always have something to say, and you'll never run out of meaningful things to talk about. I hope these tips help you the next time you find yourself in a conversation where you're wondering, what do I say next? Remember, every conversation is an opportunity to learn, connect, and grow. The more you practice these techniques, the more confident and comfortable you'll feel in any situation. If you've enjoyed this video and found these tips helpful, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content on improving your communication skills and boosting your confidence. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what's worked for you in conversations. Share in the comments. Until next time, keep talking and keep learning.